Yeah, welcome back to the MC65 podcast. Today we are diving into one of the most interesting shifting happening in the Microsoft ecosystem. While everybody's talking about AI, Copilot, low-code development, there's another movement gaining momentum, bringing software engineering principles back into Power Platform. Our guest today is Reza Neimmore, solution architect, software engineer, creator of XMR tools and PS Dataverse, and someone who spent years helping developers building better, more reliable Microsoft solutions. We'll explore why code first development matters more than ever, how AI is changing the way of developers building solutions, why everything uh, as code is being essential, and what the future of Power Platform development looks like. Wherever you are a Power Platform maker, professional, developer, solution architect, or simply curious about where Microsoft development ecosystem is heading, this conversation is packed with practical insights. So let's start. Welcome, Reza, to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you tell us before we start with these interesting topics a little bit about yourself and what your originally attract you to the Microsoft ecosystem?
Right. In fact, I had a very long journey. I started since I was a kid, started writing code. I mean, the goal was to create like a game, probably for myself. I don't know how I ended up building business applications and enterprise solutions. But yeah, it all starts with, with coding normally.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think there is one guy they have make some games in the Power Platform. I have, but I forgot who was it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Famous apps. I've seen those.
yeah, and also Sandra Kiel, she makes sessions about gamification in Power Apps. It's also really interesting. But yeah, you have worked across .NET, SharePoint, Azure, and Power Platform. How has your journey shaped your architectural thinking?
Yeah, in fact, I started with the hard one. I started with assembly language because at the time that was the only way to have like fluid graphic. Like even for I think I started with mouse. I wanted to have like a pointer. That was when Microsoft Windows was not really an operating system. So I had to deal with the pointer and detect when mouse moves and stuff like that. So you realize very quickly that with those low level languages, you cannot do a lot. You can have very focused things. So you start learning a higher level language like C, and then you go and see, okay, even that is not enough. You go to something higher, like at the time it was Visual Basic. So we had a nice marriage of Visual Basic and C++. So if something needs to be done in really high quality or extreme good performance, that would have been C++ or special components. So the low code of the time was Visual Basic. I think before that, the low code was COBOL. So it was supposed to revolutionize the world. You just write no code and everything is done. It never happened. So human, they kept trying and trying the low code um, uh, train, and then here we are. We have the low code which looks more like Excel formulas, for example. So I went along with the industry everywhere. So I came from that area to .NET, and then .NET tried to bridge that gap of productivity, like with a set of languages, in fact, that try to be everything: low level, high level, mid level, maybe not too low, but somewhere there. So you don't have to learn a lot of languages, and you remain in one language, and you can pretty much do all the stuff. There was Silverlight, if you remember. Uh, you could use the same language even in the browser. Didn't last long though, and that's for good because better technologies came along. So I went with it. So normally in enterprise application development, you ask yourself, okay, we are using really professional tools, like we are writing code, we start from scratch these applications, but the security model of a big enterprise doesn't shift overnight, right? it
mm,
remains stable. There are certain things that remain stable, and they are kind of accepted unofficially across the enterprises.
mm,
So it kind of feels boring. You want something that you can do it a lot faster. At the time, it was SharePoint, and SharePoint had something called InfoPath. With
mm,
that, you could build like mini applications, like large data entry forms, things like that. And you could have public facing applications. So you can see I'm still doing the same. It's the technology that changes around me. I still continue doing the same. So then SharePoint stopped trying to do everything because
mm,
Power Platform came along, and yeah, it was basically defined as the low code platform before the AI era, right?
mm,
It's still accurate, but it's no longer sufficient because Power Platform is becoming something broader and an enterprise application and agent platform where humans and low code makers and pro devs and AI agents can
mm.
all participate in building and operating business solution. So
Yeah,
here I am again doing the same thing in a totally different way.
yeah. Oh, when Power Platform first appeared, what did you think about it?
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't go exactly the first, I mean, head on to it. I usually stay cool and relax and wait until something matures enough, right?
Mm,
So a lot of people are normally go head first and try. Thanks to them, we learn the pitfalls and everything. The platforms are not something that I embrace since the beginning. So,
mm,
like software development itself, yeah, I go fast and I try to learn before everything becomes, revolutionary. But the platforms, I wait. So at the beginning, yeah, I was working for one of the biggest insurance companies in the
mm,
world, I think, and
mhm,
then so we have probably, I remember from one of the architects, we were using more than 300 technologies in the enterprise. And but we did all sorts of things.
mm,
I could see that whatever we do, we are wasting a lot of time and resources.
mm,
Come to a platform like Power Platform, you have a lot of things that you take for granted. But for an outsider like me, just watching the platform shape, I could see, okay, there is a very, very mature security model. There is deployment in place. It might not be the best in the world, but it's there and it's maintainable, and you're not responsible for all of it. You can you can be more focused on the business problem at hand. And if ever you build something like a ProDevi kind of component, it's for good because you're building it since the beginning to be reusable. Even better, well, preferably you are going to share it with the rest of the community as well. So that caught my eyes. Okay, I said, okay, this is the one thing that I need to jump into.
mm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What defines a great Power Platform architecture from your perspective?
Yeah, well, that's also shifting. It's shifting a
Okay.
lot because the Power Platform itself is shifting. So w- maybe a good way to see it. I don't know if you will agree with me or not, uh, but I would see it like three generation. Uh, so I have like a generational perspective. So the
Mhm,
first generation was a low code productivity uh, gen. So Gen 1, let's call it Gen 1, the low code productivity,
mm,
right? So that first generation was focused on democratizing software creation,
mm,
right? So Power Apps gave organizations a faster way to create internal business applications.
mm,
So that was the title for SharePoint, I guess, but it was stolen by Power Platform. Then Mates allowed people to automate repetitive tasks. Nobody
mm,
likes
mhm,
Power BI and made analytics more accessible.
mm,
Dataverse offered a managed business data platform. I don't think we have that anywhere else.
mm,
Dataverse is the business data platform with security and metadata and relationship and auditing and the business logic in one place, right? The central value proposition was, I think, speed, right? Instead of waiting months for development team, a
Yeah.
developer could build a useful app in a matter of days or weeks. Done right, of course. This was a major step forward, right? That's what I was sold on, right? The professional developers sometimes saw this low code as too restrictive or insufficiently disciplined. Makers found the traditional software development too complex, I think. And in the IT department worried about uncontrolled application growth and weak lifecycle management and duplicate data and stuff like that. Then you had Gen 2, which is the fusion development, my favorite. That was the second generation until recently. So you had the idea was that you have a fusion team that combines business experts, low code makers, IT professionals, architects, and software developers, and each participant had to contribute to the appropriate abstraction level, right? Then a business expert may define the process. The maker builds the initial app, a pro dev creates the custom connector, plugins, components, API, everything basically. And then the administrator establishes the security and governance. Now, the architect in that era ensured the overall system remains coherent among all its bits, right? This model recognizes an important reality. So the person who understands the business problem best or better than everyone is not always the person who should implement every technical component, right? So Power Platform became the shared environment in which these roles could collaborate. Now we are starting the third gem, which is the AI native fusion dev, right? So we are still fusion deving, uh, in lack of a better word, but it's AI native. So we are now entering a third generation where AI joins that fusion team. So AI can help. So it's in every layer,
Mm-hmm.
AI can help describe the requirement, generate the data model, create the
Mm.
app, formulate a power effect somewhere, an expression, build a cloud flow, generate code, document it, inspect metadata, query the data, operate even the business process. So this does not eliminate the existing roles. So you still have the same roles. Instead, it changes how they spend their time, basically. So the maker moves from manually placing every control on the canvas to describe the outcome and check the results basically. The developer spends less time writing repetitive plumbing and more time on the architecture. So somebody is entering that area, right? And also the domain logic, the integration, the quality, and the performance. So they have more time for these things now. The architect now, poor guy, must design not only the application and integrations, but also the boundaries within which these agents can reason and act. The administrator as well. So they must govern both human created solutions and autonomous or semi autonomous agents, right? They can reason as well. So this is the emerging model now. Business users express the intent, AI accelerates the implementation, developers add precision and extensibility, the quality, and the platform provides, again, security, governance, data. So if you look at it, with AI, we can do more, but there is more for
Uh,
everybody to do as well.
and it's more to govern, more to handle.
It-
um, what mistakes do you see actually in this power platform company work with? Is there rapidly mistakes?
well, each company is in a different because it moves fast, and companies are still the same companies. They didn't change their speed, right? So the adoption, depending on the complexity of an enterprise, is different. and also the risk level they can accept, right? Some enterprises are even built in the more modern way that they can absorb the risk, so they can allow mistakes to happen. That's the best enterprise to work with, right? They, even if they cannot take the risk, they have some way to allow the risk to happen to learn from it. That would be the best. But some enterprises, like for example, if you look at banks, they
Mm.
are very
Yeah.
risk
Regulate.
averse and
Mm.
conservative. They don't want to be the first for good reason.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it depends. So if you ask a company that is very like a bank, for example, they are probably a little bit behind. But if you look at a company with repetitive tasks like customer facing scenarios, even if it's an insurance, because insurance is a little bit less risk averse than a bank, they understand this proposition better, and they are able to absorb the risk in some departments, so they are going ahead with it. But the governance is creating the biggest problem. So we are making everybody faster, but we need some kind of oversight, and we are realizing that agents are not exactly humans, and they are not going to be uh, very similar to human kind anytime soon. So everybody is seeing that. So Microsoft is changing their approach a little bit. So they are giving us more tools. We understand more that these agents are behaving differently, and how differently. So uh, there are mistakes happening again in every layer. So because AI itself is in every layer, it's in the interface helping the business users filling the forms, it's automating the task, it's helping the developers to move faster. But you have this concept of shadow IT, which has returned in the it's still in the town, making problems for everybody, administrators, and architects, everyone. So we need to build tools that better equip us against these problems popping up everywhere.
Yeah, I have a direct two questions, but the first one is we have the old problem was in scalability was I need more developers to get my project faster. Now I think scalability has a little bit changed because everyone can do an app, I don't know, in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So how has scalability changed, and what must companies or IT under IT guys understand in the new world of scalability?
Very good question, because all of us been watching. So the I think one of the catchphrases or marketing was that okay, the AI is going to democratize app building, but
Mm,
app building is just a small piece of it.
mm,
So if you look around now, the AI has been around for a while. Like you have even all these platforms like Lovable and everything else that allow you to build apps. But now the industry is full with these apps that are kind of crickets, dead, because creating app was not the biggest problem. You could build apps fast, right? It's a lot faster now, of course, but there is a discipline to it. Like, how are you going to maintain it?
yeah,
How are you going to secure it? What is your target audience? What is the architecture? Where do you want your app to? Do you want your app to be like in 5 years? And which parts are going to change? So you see, all those concepts are still there, and AI cannot help you with those. So you have a lot of apps now that are built overnight and forgotten over a week,
yeah,
or there were like security issues, and even a good guy who was behind it, he's overwhelmed now with the number of problems that he has received. Starts from scratch, doing another app again. So I see them everywhere, but still
mm,
those teams that were already equipped with like ALM in place, with good vision, good discipline, they are the ones moving faster than before. So you can see it. The teams that are benefiting more, like 60% of their job is done by AI, they claim, are those well disciplined teams. because
mm,
they have this control and everything in place. They know how to scale their app because they were prepared for it, and AI is just making them much more productive.
yeah. And my second question is, yeah, or how looks a clean architecture in the Power Platform and for this new time of rapid development?
Yeah, it's one of those hard questions. It all depends on the enterprise that you're dealing with. So, because the picture for a small company is a bit different than the picture for a big enterprise because of the complexity that you will have to deal with. I mean, even the estimations, probably the most important factor that can affect your estimation for building a solution is the complexity of the enterprise. So you still, the old concepts are still there. You have to answer questions of how you are going to build an app, and you should be prepared as an architect to answer why. So every piece of the architecture that somebody looks at, you should be able to answer the why question in every layer,
Mm,
why you are building it that way. And most of the time, the answer is not because this is the best way.
mhm,
The right answer is that because it fits better. Because some pieces of your solution you are building maybe as a throwaway because the maturity of the business is not there, for example, to see it. So you invest less time on that. You don't waste the time of your developers and your customer. Some of them are like mature pieces. For example, for performance, you have to deal with more complexity because yeah, the performance of that part was critical. I'm just throwing some examples. So still need to answer questions like why in every layer. You still need to have a good organized disciplined way of ALM. There is no customer where you don't need ALM, for example. You need some sort of ALM because if you cannot package a software and deliver it, is it's like that software doesn't exist, right? And you should be able to do it in a repetitive way. Developers should not spend time on figuring out how to deliver. They should always spend time on building because this is their happy moment.
mm,
If you ask a developer to not develop and do something else, you're asking him to change his job title, right?
mm,
You still need to answer the same old questions all
mhm.
the time.
I think a little bit, and we have also talked about the business logic, especially in this times. Where should the business logic live, or how can we handle the business logic for these times?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in a traditional approach, some people might not like the choice of word, but okay, you have the classical or you can call it traditional way, where you start from scratch an application or software solution. You would normally try to completely separate business side of the things from the technical side of things because they change differently. Their lifespan is different than the rest of your solution. So I'm talking about, for example, you have the cross-cutting concerns like security, scalability, and so on. And then you have like specific business areas of your application, like it could be domains, for example, and within those domains you have business pieces that you would try to separate them. But when you are building in a platform, well, like for example in Power Platform, the first thing you need to respect is how that platform is already architected, right? You cannot start as if you are starting from scratch. You should see how the security works. So your architecture should fit that one. So the places that Microsoft sees for your business logic in multiple it's in multiple layers. So you have the plugins
Mm,
that is basically the native place for your business logic. And if it's process oriented, you have the Power Automate or Cloud Flows. So you have these normally the two major areas: the plugins and business process uh, flows. Probably a more a little bit different, so I will not bring that to the picture. You have the plugins and Power Automate, but some part of your business logic would always leak to other layers because of kind of end user experience thing. For example, you have rules that might set, okay, this number should be between X and Y, or if, for example, another number is between something else, that would live in your plugin, right? Somewhere in the backend. But you would still want that to be on your presentation layer. Why? Because it's easier to stop the end user entering a wrong number than to allow him to enter it and later on, show him a pop-up that complains about it, right? So for several reasons, like for enhancing the user experience, that business logic might leak up to other layers, but the primary area that it lives in is in the backend. If you're asking me this question more specifically about Power Platform, in your plugins and Power Automate.
Mm. Yeah, I think a topic, it's your topic. I think let's talk about the code first.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, and how would this Power Platform, and especially how clean code, uh,
Yeah.
clean is the code from AI?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, in the past, well, which is not long ago, you had this divide between pro code and low code. So,
Mm,
or most of the people call it now code and low code.
mm,
Uh, but now it's more about that fusion model. So there is no divide anymore. So it's more about a platform where code and low code and AI can basically um, contribute to one another. So they are basically reinforcing one another, right? So you have the low code, which is basically designed based on the pieces are built using a pro code developer, right? A pro code sits there and creates those components like Lego pieces that you put them together and build an app, right? AI is actually another contributor within that fusion team. So I see it more like that. But what happened with AI is that uh, code is becoming easier to produce, right? And you can produce a lot more code a lot faster. So it's now more about reviewing the code and understanding the code faster, right? And we are sometimes losing that oversight. So I see more and more that people, I mean, you don't even, not even, don't, you're trusting it more. You allow it to produce more. And now you're entering another area where basically you have multiple agents running in parallel in loop, generating the code. So you have to basically review a lot of code. You have to make sure you're not introducing security issues, and you're not going against best practices. Like the hard problems are still hard, like race conditions that can be only happening in the scenarios that you have a lot of load on your system, exactly the moment that it's too late to catch them. So you still have those problems, but with AI, producing the code itself is becoming easier for everyone. So you can see like the makers entering that area the same way that developers are also entering the architecture area more and more. It's becoming more shared responsibility than before. But I'm not expecting everybody to become interested in the entire business of building software. So that gives more responsibility to people like architects and the pro devs to have better oversight, to be better to review those produced codes.
mm.
but the tooling is also coming to help. Every day I see more and more tooling coming to help us go through a lot of code a lot faster as well. Again, AI is helping there too.
mm, mm. And I think we have also topics we have as developer we have to think about. It's I say the first one is what I think is versioning. How have this changed?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you have AI, I think, in two areas. I mean, coming from our perspective. So you have the AI that is basically for the builder, let's call it. That is the kind of AI that you are using to create the app using natural language descriptions or generate or explain a Power FX formula or creating like a Power Automate flow conversationally or for example suggesting a user interface helping developers understand the data model for example, right? So Power Apps Copilot, for example, can generate an app and its data model from simply a description of the business requirement. Or Power Automate Copilot allows a maker to describe a workflow through natural language. And then these experiences are intended to reduce the distance between the idea and that working, let's say, working first version. So the goal is not necessarily to produce a perfect production system from a single prompt, right? But you see the value there. Then you have in this area, so without AI, a developer or a maker begins with a blank sheet, but
Mm,
with AI, they begin with a draft, which
mm,
is much better. Then you have the AI that is inside your solution,
Mhm.
which is the second category. So the example is like, for example, summarizing a customer record or extracting information from a document or classifying an email, I don't know, recommending the next action or monitoring an event and producing actions after it. So this is a different area like a user for example expecting to do things like okay summarize this current state of the customer or show me the open cases that requires escalation or prepare like a response that I want to send about this account information I have or explain why this application was rejected, things like that. But these are two different ais that we are dealing with, which is totally different. You should not mix them. Each has its own problems and tooling and everything else, right?
mm. And what roles do CI/CD pipelines play in improvement or in improved Power Platform projects?
Right. So if you see more and more uh, with the platform itself, we are coming closer within the shared platform. Like you have now the pipelines within Power Platform
Mm,
that makers can also use. So I am hoping at some point everything comes to Git basically. So everybody only uses Git as a backend because what I have learned is that you cannot meet
mm.
developers halfway. You
Yeah.
have to meet developers exactly where they are. So a lot of tools fail because they didn't realize this. So we
Mm,
have to bring everything to Git, but we should make it so easy for the makers to work with it. I see a lot of activities happening in Power Platform for that. You can now integrate it with Git, but there are limitations. Uh, but it's the fact that everybody is recognizing, okay, we need CI/CD for everybody. The ALM concept is the same. It's just a user interface that needs to be suitable for this target audience. Right? You still need to be able to develop, test maybe within a sandbox environment, whatever, build and ship it to the environment that the end user is using it, right? It doesn't matter if you are a pro dev or a simple maker. Well, it's just the same thing. The same concepts apply. You need reliability and predictability to be able to ship fast and with peace of mind. So if you are in a situation when everybody is scared of pressing the release button, you have a problem within your ALM. So everybody should be able to happily press that button because they have the confidence, okay, this we have done it before and it always works. There is no reason to worry, and we have tested it. If you don't have that confidence, there is room for improvement in your ALM process.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like it. I'm more the DevOps guy. But
If
yeah,
it's the
but
red button, it's not good.
yeah, yeah. Okay. The developer has yeah, they have protesting against me, and we have a good integration in DevOps.
Yeah. Big enterprises, sometimes I see, for example, you have too much segregation of responsibility that it might be that the guy that presses that button doesn't even know, uh, the responsibility behind it. So he presses the button, but
Yeah,
things get wrong after, and it's the developer who will be called, right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
want to be in that situation.
yeah, yeah. um, what would you say? What should always be stored in the source control?
Well, the source control should be the source of truth. So I have seen over years that Power Platform has come a long way, right? We have gone from the time that nothing was in the source control to the area that okay, we realized that okay, things should be in the source control because of the traceability. But now we have fully realized that Power Platform is not an exception. So just for the same reasons that every other technology needs a version control, not just for traceability, for many other things, yeah, Power Platform should also use Git as the source of truth for everything. So the things that are built and designed, they should go to Git.
Mhm.
But you normally take that source code or metadata and configuration and you build something, right? That build is supposed to be uh, repeatable. So if you, for example, you have the build server or the build process, if you feed in the same source, it should give you back the same binaries that you can deploy, right? But those binaries should not end up in your Git because the moment you have two places that things live, like in your Artifactory or in whatever area that you store and ship the binaries to the end user, if you have that same binaries in the source control, that's not good because then you have the question of which one is the latest or which one is pointing to this version in the source control. So we always try to, when we build the CI/CD pipeline or the ALM, bigger picture, we always try to make sure what is buildable should not end up in Git. Like for example, in Power Platform, we have the DLLs of the plugins, the assemblies, or we have the NuGet packages, or we have these JavaScripts or PCF components. So these things that are built, build is the output. They should not end up in the repository because the traditional way to look at Git for Power Platform developers was that okay, this is just for traceability, so we can go back and see the code. No, you should be able to take the Git repository and using only that, be able to spin up quickly an environment and deploy everything and have a development environment very quickly. So it's not the idea to have just the history in there. Everything becomes traceable. You should go be able to go back and roll back your changes, correct things. You should be able to uh, reason why something has changed. So that means that even things that are coming from your Power Platform environment, you create a form, create a view, then you should take that view and form whatever you built, push it to Git and describe what you did. So it's it means that 10 years
Mm.
from now, well, 10 years is a long time, maybe 2 years from now, you should be able to come back to that project and but just looking at your Git, be able to know what happened in these 2 years that you were not around, right? And then with confidence You should be able to create a development environment and simply use Git to spin it up.
Mm, Um, I think um, for us other Azure guys, we have this infrastructure as a code topic, PowerShell,
Right.
Graph API, and so on. Is there a similar idea for the Power Platform?
Yes, yes. So you have provided for Terraform,
Hmm.
normally the most popular one because there are different
Bicep.
options.
Biceps.
Ye- I haven't seen in big enterprises where like the ones that have several technologies, because this Terraform, for example, is more open, supports more technologies. Like it can go from Azure to AWS to Google, and now in Power Platform. The problem is that, well, it's open source, right? But it doesn't cover everything. So if you see something missing, you are welcome to contribute to that. Um, and it's always nice to have more contributors. The one of the problems is that Power Platform itself is moving fast. So you had DLPs, for example. Now you have an easier way, but that easier way needs API behind it. So it needs to become accessible through Power Platform API. Then we can have it in the Terraform provider one day, right? It doesn't cover everything now, but it's the nature of the business. So it moves fast, takes time to get there as well. I like this idea of having a way of just defining the environment to be at big, and it becomes like that, rather than writing a description of what to do in PowerShell scripts to build that environment. But it's not that difficult. Like for now, because Power Platform is not like Azure either. In Azure, you have to do a lot more than Power Platform. Power Platform, building the environment or configuring it is not that difficult. You have the environment groups now that makes it easier, and you have these blueprints that you can apply, and there is more than before, and it's easier to manage now. But yeah, Terraform is always welcome because in a big solution, you most likely have a lot of Azure components as well. You have Event Hub, you have Azure Service Bus, you have Functions apps, and other pieces. So having Terraform also for your Power Platform would make it more coherent and easier for the DevOps guys who are used to your Terraform approach to also deal with Power Platform. But it's not far from that. You have, I don't know if you're familiar with the CDS approach, which is basically, so previously you had the code components which were totally isolated from artifacts that you would build visually in Power Platform, but they are basically closing the gap. So all the things that you build in a Power Platform environment can live under a project that you basically can build. So you just queue a build operation, and it can produce your Power Platform solution, which is ready to deploy. I'm not trying to, say, okay, it's perfect and you install it and everything is done. There is still more work to be done after your deployment. And Terraform is a very good glue that can, fill that gap.
Yeah, that is what was really fantastic. But I also will take the chance to talk about your tools or
Right.
your what tool you have built XMR tools. What is it? What inspired you, and what problem tried to solve?
All right. It actually started with an experiment. So I saw the way that we are developing Power Platform solutions in the past, and coming from because I transition from different technologies. I normally move horizontally. When I get bored, I start with another technology. So when I arrived at Power Platform, I was expecting better tooling, let's say. For example, in SharePoint, you had better tooling. So you would always build everything in uh, Visual Studio. It was marketed long ago as the integrated development environment. So it's more than a coding tool, right? You should have been able to do everything in Visual Studio, and you could do everything for SharePoint. But when I arrived there, I thought, okay, there is a lot of room for improvement. So there is like an extension, I think, yeah, from Microsoft that you can install on Visual Studio. So there's a lot of problems in it. It's clear that it's not maintained as much, or Microsoft is not really invested on that one. When I asked Aram who is using it, I didn't see any hands going up in any company. Some people tried it and got disappointed. It's documented how to use it, but it's not doing a lot. And then uh, the modern approach for software development is basically defining everything as code. And we are seeing the benefit a lot more nowadays with AI, because whatever that could be defined as code can be produced with AI as well, right? But there is a lot of pieces in Power Platform that couldn't be defined as code. Like you write a plugin, but you have to go somewhere else to define what your plugin does and when it should be activated and what should be sent to your um, plugin. So the configuration, the context. So if you touch your code in your plugin, you have to go back. And for custom APIs, which is a more sophisticated plugin, you can have all sorts of inputs and outputs. It gets even more difficult because on top of that, you have the input and output of the API. And God forbid, if it changes, you have to again jump back to the tool. And there is not one tool, but many to work with. That means developer is losing um their cycle, they come out of that zen that they are developing fast, and after a while, which is basically what is even worse, they get used to it, so they just accept it as the nature of the work. But when I came to that area, I noticed there is a gap to be filled. I didn't want the developers to go outside to define what could be already visible in the code. So I saw there were some attempts at doing it, but bringing these things to Visual Studio, Visual Studio is very extendable, but it's very difficult to extend it, and not everything is documented. So somebody had to bite the bullet and sit down and learn how to work with Visual Studio, and it was difficult. So I didn't make any promises to anybody, not even to myself. I said, okay, let's try. It could be a fun side project. That fun project took a year. I think I spent more than 1,000 hours versioning. So I was able at that time to be, you just put some attributes. This is the way that every C sharp developer works in the world. Um, you add attribute to your plugin. Why? Because that's not directly related to the code that you're writing, but it's about the code that you're writing. What is the place? If you ask any C sharp developer, they will answer C sharp attributes. It even exists in other languages like Go and many other languages, Java, for example. So
Yeah.
there was no question. That's the right place. So you can now with XRM tools, you just add some attributes. It's a plug. This is the step. This is the image, and then you just right click on your project and register. But the thing is, some magic happened at that moment, because the moment you put that in your code, that becomes first of all a single source of truth uh, in reality, not in marketing anymore. You define your API input and output. You define the registration of plugin right beside the business logic there in a clean way. And now, not only Visual Studio can understand what it needs to do to register your plugin in a single click, and also maybe another advantage is that the entire thing is a transaction. So if it fails in any moment, it will roll back the entire thing. It doesn't happen in any other tool. But then I noticed, wow, the analyzers, you might be familiar with them in .NET, and code fixers, they also see it. So they can complain if you are doing something wrong, And as your intention becomes clear to Visual Studio, it can do a lot more. So it knows, for example, in your plugin, you have a dependency on which table and which columns. So you have a type safe target. There is no way you can make human error even if you try. So your code will not compile anymore. So it becomes a lot safer. It becomes a lot faster. Or like common problems, for example, you're not allowed to use state within your plugin. Why? Because the plugin can run again and again, and the context will be different each time. It can be a different user with a different permission running even. So it's even dangerous to keep things in your properties of your class, which is your state, but not with XRM tools because we have dependency injection. So it brings all these concepts that existed outside of Power Platform for everybody else now within Power Platform. Your build becomes safe. You just right click and register. It takes care of the build if it's required. Then I bring all these things that are in Power Platform as native services. You can just open a new fetch file and write a query, and it compiles and generates code for you. So whenever I see opportunity that this is a code that is always looking the same way, the boring stuff, XRM tools should take care of it. But there is a lot more coming to it. I talked about CDS Proj. Like CDS Proj is nice project model, but you cannot even open it in Visual Studio. But I'm not going to tell you a lot more than that, but there is a lot of stuff coming to XRM Tools that makes it also a first class citizen in Visual Studio very soon.
Yeah, you have spent thousand hours on work and get your MVP, and now you have for the next year you have a newer product, the PS Dataverse. That's PowerShell to the Dataverse. So can you a little bit tell us about this?
These are different tools with different goals. So for XRM tools, because it's built for Visual Studio and for the developer target audience, the expectation of the quality is extremely high. Like, for example, in XRM tools,
Hmm.
there's no simple way to, for example, you might look at Visual Studio and say, okay, everything should have the same theme. If it's dark, everything should be dark. But when you create like an extension for Visual Studio, it looks like Windows 95. It takes the default colors of Windows, and you have to do a lot of work just to bring the theming of the Visual Studio to your extension. And every single piece is important for me because I don't have like a release date that is announced to anybody. I take a lot of time to make all these little corners perfect before I release. The PS Dataverse is a different tool. So that's basically there.
Hmm.
Uh, you can use PowerShell to create a record or two in Power Platform, but nobody's using that for data migration. Why? Because you
Hmm.
might be needing to move massive amounts of data in and out of Power Platform, right? PS Dataverse is for that purpose. So you basically generate a JSON, which is extremely easy in PowerShell, probably with one line of code now. You can connect to any data source, be it PostgreSQL or SQL Server, Oracle, whatever. It's always not more than a line of code, and probably one more line of code to read massive amount of data. There is always a module for that. It doesn't matter which data source. Then the problem is here. How are you going to move that massive data into Power Platform reliably? So PS Dataverse fixes that missing piece. So you are able to load large amount of data, give it to PS Dataverse, and point at the table to move that data. So with that in place, you can do a lot of magic basically. It takes care of connecting to your Power Platform securely, creating parallel pipelines to your Power Platform, and send massive amount of data in transactions. So it's actually patching them and running them in parallel. And because the runtime is very light, you are not within SSIS, which is itself very large. And because it's code based, you can run it anywhere a code can run, in the cloud, uh, hosted, or within a VM, or from an on-prem service, on-prem VM. You can just move that amount of data to the target environment. I have like samples written there that shows you like real production scenarios. What happens, for example, if in the middle of the data migration, for some reason, network outage, everything stops. You should be able to resume. You don't want to start from scratch. So it addresses all those common problems, and we use it in different teams to do huge data migrations, to spin up environments with pre-existing data. If it's like 20 records, it's very easy. You can do it manually or with an Excel sheet. But what if you need like 10,000 records in 50 different tables with dependencies on each other's, right? With the UI, it will be a nightmare. But if you can convert it to JSON, PS Dataverse can move it to Power Platform, and vice versa. You can move it outside of Power Platform in JSON format and store it somewhere. So you might be immediately thinking about, wow, we can transfer data between environments reliably. Because before you had the data flows, it's going to become obsolete soon, and they are not able to move reliably data more than 10,000. And maybe with some tricks, which I have also shared in some blog posts in the past, you can go up to 100,000 records, but more than that, probably not possible in a normal way. But with PS Dataverse, you can have like millions of records in different tables, and reliably moving them to the cloud or back.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're a little bit running out of time. So let's jump in the rapid fire round. I make a short question and you give a short answer.
Oh, I'm not good.
So, uh, .NET, Java, C Sharp, or PowerShell?
Ah, maybe .NET.
uh, Visual Studio or VS Code?
Wow, that's different tool for different job. But yeah, I would say Visual Studio.
REST or GraphQL?
Ah, nice one. GraphQL.
Canvas apps or model-driven apps?
Modern driven apps.
Automate or Azure Functions?
Azure Functions.
Clean code or fast code?
Clean code.
YAML or GUI?
Um, that's a very difficult one. Yeah, GUI.
Tabs or spaces?
Spaces.
Dark mode or light mode?
Dark mode, certainly.
The first bug you ever fixed?
The first bug I ever fixed. Oh my god, that's a difficult one. I don't really remember that.
Okay. When Microsoft came and say is you get all the money and resources you need, what feature will you build?
Hmm. In Power Platform, you mean?
Yeah, you're free in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Right. One of my favorite technologies within Microsoft large ecosystem is Azure Functions, because I cannot imagine in any of the other Microsoft products you don't need uh, a simple to build compute runtime where you can write code and run it easily and ship it easily or easier than Azure Functions. I would have liked to see Azure Functions everywhere. So within Power Platform, not outside. So you could write plugins and deploy them. But if you look at Azure Functions, you have triggers. They could be your plugin engine. They could be your API engine. They could run within SharePoint. They could run within every technology uh, in Microsoft ecosystems everywhere. Then that would have made it easier for everybody to learn, because you would learn just Azure Functions and you are able to develop for every technology in Microsoft ecosystem. And for Microsoft, it would be easy because you would just connect Azure Functions to AI,
Mm,
whereas now you are going to connect all these different technologies to AI.
yeah. Then my last question: favorite keyboard shortcut?
Hmm. There is a lot of them. Or maybe a 5 for the developers.
Yeah, Reza, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this conversation because we went beyond the usual Power Platform discussions and enjoy how modern engineering, development, productivity, AI solutions are coming together. It's really, really cool. I hope we can do another session because I have so much more questions, especially to the governance stuff. We're a little bit short here. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it too.